going for elective leadership positions alongside their male counterparts. But Kenya has not yet achieved the two-thirds gender rule constitutional requirement that ensures not more than two-thirds of the members of elective public bodies are of the same gender. However, civil society organizations, political parties, as well as development partners are stepping up efforts towards an egalitarian society, and that is materializing in contemporary Kenya. Nonetheless, two women-led factions have emerged in the ruling Jubilee Party affiliated differently. How does this affect a domain that makes up 46% of the voters in 2017 and makes up over 50% of the Kenyan population? Be part of the discussion. The hashtag on Twitter is News Compass, and the short SMS code is 40920. We'll be talking to the Member of Parliament, Suba North, Honorable Milly Odhiambo, on my far right. Thank you, Mheshimiwa, for coming. I do appreciate your time. And Nafula Kisiangani on my immediate right, who is commentator on Women Affairs and analyst. I do appreciate your time. Of course, we expect the former Member of Parliament for Kathiani, the Honorable Ovinya Ndeti, who is now the chairperson of who is a chairperson of a parastatal in the country afterwards appointments made by President Uhuru Kenyatta. I'll come to you first, Honorable Milly Odhiambo. Looking at the developments today in the country and 28 years more or less since the space opened up in the country for women, we have seen the rise or the springing up, or rather the mushrooming of women of great contrast, including you, who served equally at the office of the Ombudsman in the country and are incredibly formidable in political arguments. Are we there for women?
Well, just for correction, I didn't serve in the office of the Ombudsman, but I've served in the office of the Attorney General. Yes. And have we seen a difference? Yes. I think there has been a difference, because if you look at pre-2010 Constitution, we were very few women. I was nominated to the 10th Parliament, and in the 10th Parliament, I think we're only 16. Yes. And that's 16 out of 290, and that was, I think, inclusive. I don't know, I can't remember what it was, inclusive of the nominated, but we were extremely few. Post 2010, when we introduced the affirmative action seats, we immediately got 47 increase, automatic 47 increase with the women in the National Assembly, and 18 in the Senate, and 1/3 in every county assembly. So yes, there has been a difference. Even in the appointed positions, even though we have not yet got 1/3, but we have made strides. So yes, there has been a change. Yes. Okay, Nafula Kisiangani, coming to you. At some point in 2013, prior, of course, the entire mess, the Brexit mess, the then Prime Minister David Cameron was eulogizing Margaret Thatcher, and he said in 1979, they say, there comes the hour, or there cometh the hour, cometh the man. And for Britain, in 1979, Margaret Thatcher came, and she graced the office as one of the best ever prime ministers before her demise. Does it equally one that translates into the Kenyan affairs politically when we look at post-1991 and post the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution?
If I've gotten you right, are you trying to compare Margaret Thatcher leadership with Kenya? In
essence, are we rife in terms of the political maturity post-1991 when we had the space opened up, and post the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution?
I think there's been some progress, but it's been slow progress politically. Our political environment is still shaped up by a number of factors. And that's sometimes it's very important, in as much as we are focusing on amendments up there, which is very important. Like for me, it's very important, like two-third gender rule, because I believe representation is not just a democratic obligation, but it's a right. Yeah, everybody's views and perspectives must be brought to the table for us to have wholesome decision. But I feel we still need to do a lot at the grassroots levels, trying to empower masses on the especially matters gender. There has been progress, but the progress is a bit slow. That's one area I want to urge also the government and the civil society to focus on, because often we just focus on the policies and nobody is going to the grassroots to try and change mindsets. So women are still facing some hostilities. back in the grassroots. And I think as Kenya, like you said, I think we are ready, but we need to do a lot more if we are really honest about wanting to see gender equality in Kenya.
All right, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, I'll come to you. Of course, there are members of your ODM party or your counterparts in the National Assembly who are members of Team Embrace that presented its proposals before the BBI. They comprise of female members of parliament, professionals, businesswomen, civil rights activists, and elected leaders. And among one of the issues they want is the opposite gender rule to apply in the national and county governments and all executive agencies, including in the elections, to provide where a presidential candidate is male, the running mate should be of the opposite gender. Of course, you're not affiliated, you are conserved politically to say that. But is this perhaps the leeway, the gateway towards the attainment of women empowerment politically?
I think I associate myself with the position of the Embrace team.
Okay.
I'm not in Embrace, yes, okay. But that doesn't mean I do not associate myself with their views. And even for Inua, I think for both Inua and Embrace, they are talking you know, a language that resonates with me. They're talking about women empowerment. They're talking about, you know, increasing numbers for women.
All right.
So for me, I think it would be a good thing if you have a president that is a male that is supported by a female and vice versa, because that is what we call the zebra approach that we've been working towards. In the time, during the time that we are talking about the constitutional review process,
yes,
we espoused it, but we did not entrench it in writing. And I remember members saying then, you know, let's not, you know, go the whole hog. Let's give Kenyan, you know, incremental acceptance. Let them have an incremental acceptance. We start with 47, then incrementally we increase the numbers. And then after that, we can entrench the zebra approach. But if you look at even a lot of the parastatals that are coming now, there are some of the laws that are brave enough now that even in the constitution, I mean, in parliament, a lot of the laws that are coming, we are already trying to entrench that zebra approach. That when you have in one parastatal, if the chair is a man, then the vice chair should be a woman and vice versa. So yes, I think that's the way to go. So I associate myself with those views.
Yes, of course, the views, and but you haven't been present in...
No, I'm not present.
Yes.
Everybody talks about empowering younger people, building capacities, creating space for others. But I cannot do that when I am all present. Yeah, let other people, other younger, more vibrant women who have not fought for women's space be visible.
Okay.
Let them be seen. So I support them. Ideologically, yes. I support them.
Yes,
but I'm not present with them because let other women be seen. Let them, you know, sort of push the agenda that some of us have been pushing for years.
Okay. Yes. We'll come also to the nitty-gritties politically, because there is also an angle with which you have expressed concerns. You said it was unfortunate statements made by Senator Cherargei. We'll come to that because equally it's a trend that continues to be present in the political arena. And Nafula, I'll come to you. Do you see the 50-50 sharing approach that was presented in the document by the Embrace women in the country, perhaps as an empowerment model for women in the country? And is it perhaps a case of those critics who might see it as women ring-fencing themselves positions they see is not genuinely or does not genuinely belong to women?
I think it's even inaccurate to say that an empowering position to women in the country, because when this thing is achieved, everyone wins, including, it's not just about women, it's all about everyone winning in the country, like both women and men. These women are mothers, they are daughters. You see, when women are productive, the entire economy, everything becomes productive. And when women know their value in development, like 50-50, and like I said earlier on, it is very important. We should stop just seeing representation as a democratic obligation. I will say, picture this. We recently saw how drought was in Turkana. It was a very sad ordeal. If what we were saying, like, if the governor, let's say, is a man, the deputy governor is a woman, we will not be seeing things like those ones, because you'll realize we live in a society where men and women have got different roles. Now, if it's the table only has men, which means only the perspectives of men are being brought on the table.
Okay.
You get it? But if it's 50-50, like a woman will say, like in Turkana, it's women who go and fetch water. A woman would have noticed this and brought it on the table, like we have this and this problem. We wouldn't have seen deaths as a result of drought. We should start seeing it from that perspective, that when women want, it's a win for everyone, because they are the mother, the people who are going to the river at home, they're the people who are the homemakers and everything. So when we want, it's not that they are selfish, they want it, or it's a development that is going to affect everyone. Everyone is going to, the economy is going to rise. Both men and women are winning in this. So whenever when people feel like women empowerment is solely for women,
yes,
when we are doing this for our families and for everyone in the society, just to make every woman productive. And we want to see many women. Some of us have gotten into politics or these spaces because we got inspiration from people like Millie Odhiambo. We need enough sufficient role models back at home. I'll give you an example. Are you aware that in Western Province, there is no female MP, female senator, female governor, or deputy governor? We only have women reps. So it's so hard to convince a girl back then that a woman can grow up to, and this means that there's a limited potential that needs to be rebooted, yeah. So I think it's very important whatever Embrace are raising, and we should start looking at it from a different perspective, not as women are selfish, they want to take it there, but we should start looking at the whole sum of representation and the quality of decisions that are going to come when the table is, everyone is, not just women, even people with disabilities, even youth, and everyone deserves a seat on the high table, equal numbers.
Okay, yes. And of course, a lot of talking points to that, since there are only 3 elected governors, of course, now minus the late Dr. Joyce Laboso. But I'll come to you in regards to Honorable, the points raised by Nafula Kisiangani, Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Given the developments that we are seeing politically, women have competed politically and have achieved great strength and stride, of course. But you look at a country which is a regional ally like Rwanda, which has achieved gender parity, and its parliament is composed of more women, 64%, more than even the House of Commons in the UK, the birthplace of democracy. Do you see that political will present in Kenya's political environment?
I don't think we have attained that sort of political goodwill yet. Because if we had had that political goodwill, then we would have already attained
the 2/3,
even 50-50 or 2/3. Every time that even the bill is brought before the House, you cannot see the spirited attempt at ensuring that we even have the requisite quorum. And a lot of times I've seen when we are serious about getting numbers, we get the numbers. So the political goodwill is still missing. But all is not lost, and that is why I'm happy when you see women pushing, and that's why even for me, I'm glad that we have Inua Mama and you have Embrace. And the reason why I'm saying that is that it is rumored that Inua Mama is supporting, affiliated or supporting Punguza Mzigo or DP. And Team Embrace, on the other hand, is also seen to be leaning on one direction. And for me, the good thing about it is that whatever political discourse that is being engaged in, the women's voices
have been heard.
Have been heard very loud and clear. So I would want to encourage women in those spaces to stay firm and stay put. There is really, in fact, on this one, I wouldn't even say let's have a unified voice. The unified voice for us as women, especially elected women, is KEWOPA, Kenya Women Parliamentary Association. But at this political level, those formations are excellent. So let Inua continue, let Embrace continue, because our voices must be heard. And then you also have individual voices that will push, like the way we are doing now, at different levels, at TV, on TV, I mean, through the media, through workshops, through community engagement. Let all voices be heard.
Okay, given that and the fact that you have mentioned the coming together or the cocktail representation of the women who are in the different factions, how do they, what they're presenting in terms of paper and formally is, of course, according to you, something that makes sense or resonates well with women in the country. But how do they cushion themselves or insulate themselves from the protracted political crisis on both ends?
I don't think there's any reason to or need to cushion themselves. And the reason why I'm saying that is that if you look at the formation with the Embrace, for instance, when it started, it didn't start as aligned to any, group or whatever. And there were basically women who were talking about peace and promoting peace. But over time, it has been seen like Embrace is aligned. And the same with Inua. Inua, when it started, they said, no, us, all we want to do is to lift, the women. And for a lot of people see it as a reaction to Embrace that was seen to be leaning on one side. But either way, the reason why I'm saying nobody, women don't need to insulate themselves against anything because, this is politics.
All right.
And even if they align themselves, we are in politics. In politics, you have to align yourself either way. So it's okay. It's okay to align. Yeah.
Okay.
And for me, on the women's issues, so long as they're talking women, I will support and promote both. But when they now take positions and they come out publicly and they say for instance, Inua says, well, we are supporting this position, then I will make my decision. But right now, none of them have said they are a political, formation, even though their indications are there. But when say a future time, should they say, for instance, and make it a very clear political formation, then I will make my decision. But right now, they are talking about issues that resonate with me, and that is women's rights.
And resonates with also equally the women who make alliance share, who make up alliance share of the population. Nafula Kisiangani, coming to you then. One of the women who stood up to President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi's suppressive and dictatorial KANU regime was Professor Wangari Maathai in the build-up to the multi-party democracy. Over time, there has been the lack or the vacuum in presence of women to speak truth to power. Now we have the Embrace and Inua Mama, which I imagine as perhaps factions that not only have political interest beneath their documents, but also equally put forth the interests of women in the country. Has this been a voice overdue, and why the such knee-jerk reaction from the women entity in the country?
I will say that it's also inaccurate to say that there's been a vacuum. There hasn't been a vacuum. It's time we start appreciating that. Women have got different ways how they express themselves. There is no homogeneity in these things. Wangari Maathai had her strengths. We've seen other great women like Martha Karua, Charity Ngilu, also putting their powers in their own way. You see, we should stop seeing women with one lenses. That is one of the problems that women are facing in the country. Like femininity is so seen in a very homogenic way. So whatever Embrace and Inua Mama are doing, I think they're doing the right thing. They're just emphasizing and strengthening the voices of women, but there's just a change of strategy. We've been seeing our female politicians struggling. A lot of bills have been passed. This struggle is not just, I cannot attribute it to the last 3 years.
But also one of the things that I can actually say is that times have also changed.
Yes.
So what then, the sort of response that we'd had 20 years ago
isn't the same today.
Does not apply right now. The situation, the political situation and circumstances have changed. That you might find that even though we may not get the rights that we want, but there is a listening, ear. There is a listening ear even if they are not reacting. But we're talking at a time when there was not even a listening ear. And not only was there not listening ear, even if you tried or purported to do action, you would be arrested, you would be detained, you would be tortured. We kind of really don't have that right now. There may still be, situations that are not very favorable. Like, for instance, I'm not very happy with the trend that when somebody is arrested, like this Keroche case, even though it has nothing to do with women, but I can see there's a woman there, so it's of concern to me, that why would you want to arrest somebody to keep them overnight at the police station? Who is doing investigations in the night? We came up with a new, constitution that guarantees you freedom until, even while on trial, because even murder suspects now are free. But then I'm seeing of late there's that sort of trend. But, so just for maybe those little step backs, on the whole, you can't compare our responses 15 years ago to now. 15 years ago, I used to demonstrate. I used to be beaten by the police on the streets. But right now, the circumstances are fairly different. I can't sit on the table and we can discuss and we can agree to disagree. But we can sit around table as women.
Okay, then that is literally, Kisiangani, coming to you. The point with which he says there are specific institutions guaranteed independence by the Constitution. Of course, I'm sure you, the mandated institution to do investigations is the DCI, and which literally plays the sort of the anchor point in the criminal justice system. But listening to what Honorable Millie Odhiambo did say, is it a time that we engage, and generally women included, in conversational issues or politics than what appeared to have been confrontational, which led to violence and, of course, the killing of many Kenyans?
I think that is very important. We have to engage, and we can only do that when we try to raise the voices of women right from the grassroots. And I want to just also, that's where I'm a bit happy about Embrace and Inua Mama, both of them, because we realize that the two teams are focusing also on the grassroots. Their approach, backed by, of course, the widened civic space, like Mheshimiwa has said, like this widened civic space that is also facilitating them to penetrate to the grassroots. They are doing a very important thing, because the reason why it's been confrontational is because the civic space has been, when it's narrowed down, it brings a lot of bitterness and confrontation. But when we create a space for dialogue, systems whereby issues can be addressed in a more progressive way, where we can have like a responsible dialogue that are not necessarily confrontational. We can discuss issues like whatever Mheshimiwa is raising, for instance, like someone being raised overnight. I see like maybe some gap somewhere in, I don't know if it's a policy gap, or just implementation gap, or something like, it's something that can be, we can speak about it, and it can be changed, something like that. So I think it's very important, first of all, that women, we reach to the grassroots women. I personally believe in the grassroots women. If you want to change the politics of Kenya and the dynamics, because I've seen our women leaders being humiliated in the grassroots, like they go there. We really need, whatever Embrace and Inua is doing is very good, and also the civil society, we should all get to the grassroots to start these conversations from there, because that is where the problem is, actually, a lot of it.
Okay, perhaps the root cause of where the problems at hand are being addressed is from. Honorable Millie Odhiambo and Nafula Kisiangani, we hit the break here on the program. When we come back, of course, I'll want to seek your sentiments. The Punguza Mzigo bill that seeks to, that has presented its proposal saying 1 woman, 1 man from each county, that again literally put off the guaranteed women position from each of the 47 counties across the devolved units. Be part of the discussion. When we come back from the break, I'll sample some of your tweets on the big screen before we continue with the discussion and continue to hear from the Member of Parliament, Suba North, and women commentator and analyst, Nafula Kisiangani. Stay tuned. Yes, we aren't doing the program alone, so I want to sample some of your feedback on Twitter using the hashtag NewsCompass. Jasvino Maida says, this one is just coming, it's afresh, so we have to get it rather. It's never clear so far what the referendum is about. What is the referendum question? If these guys can't just focus on fighting and eliminating corruption as the first focus, then the rest will easily fall in place. Josephine says, is the government serious about bridging the gender political gap in the country? Top Mashariki says it's dumbfounding that Kenyans are being subjected to discussions and debate about some individuals who believe we should change the constitution. I'll come to that after this. Political parties have consistently failed to support and or nominate women for critical positions, despite a focus on being gender inclusive within the party manifestos. One final one here. Ngamia Fujo says our history between 1963 and 1982 is tainted with 27 frivolous and whimsical amendments, including some of those being floated now. And there are many, but let me just take on this. 254 Digital says these sentiments against Mr. Okot's bill might appear to be random, but the innocence of their arguments lies a more powerful and calculative force. Continue using the hashtag It's News Compass, and of course we'll continue getting them by time as we seek the sentiments of Honorable Millie Odhiambo and Nafula Kisiangani in the second and final segment of the program here on News Compass. And I'll come to you direct. Honorable Millie Odhiambo, one of the issues that raised concerns about the Okot bill, the proposals that is currently before the county assemblies, is about the one man to be elected from each of the 47 counties, and he largely wants to cut down on the bicameral parliament. But women have opposed that, saying it takes off the guaranteed position at the county level. What's your opinion to his bill?
That's actually true. What my good friend Okot has done is that he has said, and you actually, if you read the bill, it talks about punguza mzigo. But in effect, what he has done is not punguza dedi mzigo. It should actually be renamed to punguza wamama. His bill is focusing largely on punguza ring wamama. Because if you look at the National Assembly, for instance, it at the, or what we'd call in law prima facie on the face of it.
Yes.
It looks very attractive because it says now we're going to achieve 50-50. And the way we are going to achieve 50-50 is to have one man, one woman in the National Assembly. But we are not doing the same in Senate. But, Senate and the National Assembly together forms the Parliament of Kenya.
Yes.
So the moment you put 50-50 in the National Assembly and none in the Senate, it means the Parliament of Kenya, in terms of the percentage, will automatically be lower. But other than that, what it actually effectively does is that it's not really doing anything new, because we have guaranteed positions called women rep,
yes,
where women fight out against women. Now, in the Okot bill, the moment you say that there will be one man per county and one woman per county, then automatically all the women will go for the woman's seat, because it's guaranteed one is for a man, one is for a woman. So if I go to the county to go for that seat, I cannot be fighting against a male position. I will be fighting against the woman's position. Similarly, all the men will be fighting for the male position,
yes,
not the women's position. So what has he done? He's only created a new position called male rep. So he's done away with the position of members of parliament in the National Assembly as we know it. So in reality, if we are telling people in a simple term, then what our court has done is to kill the National Assembly as we know it, retain the women reps, and introduce the men reps. So what we will have is women rep and men rep and no MPs as we know. That is the first thing is done.
All right.
When you go to the county level, it's done completely away with the nominated slots for the women, the women in the county assemblies. Yet he's saying that at that ward level is where he wants to move the money from, like, for instance, do away with the CDF,
yes,
and then take it.
put it under the ward.
Put it under the ward level, at the ward level, even though he has not said that there's a ward development fund. And what is likely to happen is after that, then all the money then will go to the executive, which we are currently even having a problem, because most places the money doesn't reach. The money that tends to reach is the CDF, despite the challenges people are facing. So what then are you telling us, even if you are to come up with a ward development fund, that at the point where you are saying that you have devolved the money to, there are no women? And then if you look at 100, Article 100 again, he has proposing which Article 100 in the Constitution talks about the Parliament coming up with a law,
yes,
to take care of certain categories of people. He's removing the youth, he's removing persons with disability, he's removing the women, and curiously, and he's also removed the marginalized, but left ethnic minorities. Why? So there's also a very selfish component, because you could actually classify him as an ethnic minority. So it is also serving very personal interests for him. And for me, I cannot even remotely, not as an intellectual, not as a lawyer, other than the fact that, of course, the bill is very poorly drafted. And if you want to look at it, look at Article 111, that then deletes sabbatical 2 and 3,
yes,
yet anchors the Article 1 of the same Article 111 on the articles that are deleted. So you are going to have even awkward, legislation within the Punguza Mzigo. So as an idea, it is very attractive.
Okay.
When you say Punguza Mzigo, Kenyans will be very happy because Kenyans are overtaxed. Kenyans are struggling. So when somebody tells you Punguza Mzigo, you'll be very happy. But as I've said somewhere, I want to say, as I've said elsewhere, that what this Punguza Mzigo reminds me of is a poem that we used to study when we were in primary school, of a woman whose husband went to Nairobi.
Yes.
And said, and then when the husband went to Nairobi, he said, my husband went to Nairobi and promised me a sewing machine, but sent me a needle instead. So it's very big on promises,
yes,
but very small on actual delivery.
Okay.
He has sent us a needle when he is telling us his promises to Punguza Mzigo,
yes,
and the Mzigo here was a sewing machine,
yes,
but he has delivered a needle.
Okay. Now, Nafula, let me come to you. Getting down, because I've also spoken to the leadership of the Third Way Alliance Party of Kenya, which has proposed that, looking at, in the event say that the bill is effected, it means then that a woman will compete against men in every county, and that literally doesn't guarantee the position in the National Assembly, which, while we are, again, struggling with the 2/3 gender principle in the National Assembly, does it further, again, water down the gains made by women in the country? And is it one that is shrouded in secrecy? Is it literally this fight against the women in the country?
I don't think his intention was to fight against the women in the country, but when I look at the Punguza Mzigo bill, that I can just see the consequences of not engaging the Wananchi and the Wanjiku. And sometimes I feel so bad when our leaders, for example, Ekuru Aukot in this situation, who is the pioneer of Punguza Mzigo, when they just ignore the voices of the people, because we understand where the problem is, us like women in the grassroots everywhere. Like when you look at his solutions, they are very cosmetic. They really look good, even like what they've said, like one man and one woman. I don't think it's addressing our current problem, like the gender issues we are facing. It's just covering up, because the issue is not separating women from competing with men, because we want, the issue is about creating favorable environment whereby women and men can compete effectively, you see. Right. So we are just going to cover up the challenges that women are facing, but whenever it comes to the time when women are competing with men, these issues are coming out, and that is what the current setup is trying to solve, like the 47 women rep. You'll see that it's an affirmative action, and it's trying to roll out and take the empowerment back to mashinani so that it can improve. We need a favorable environment whereby men and women, we can just compete favorably. So I don't agree to Punguza Mzigo bill and what has been raised about it, and even the solutions to get the gender gaps, to me, they are not making sense.
Okay.
Yes. It's actually creating affirmative action for men,
yes,
and affirmative action for women. Because when men fight with men
yes,
only, you are actually creating exclusive zones so that the men don't have to fight with women. So it's affirmative action for men, and then it's creating affirmative action for women.
Yeah. Of course, there is an out-large opposition to that, including the ODM party, Musalia Mudavadi, Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula, and other parties, which say that this is against the gains made for women in the country, and generally the political gains made in the country. But Honorable Millie, coming to you, there are equally other developments which are important in the country. And just this week, about 2 days ago, the World Bank released a report where it said that Kenyans are not getting value for the taxes they pay to the government. It cited what it said was the GDP growth, for instance, on the issue of health in the country, the electricity connectivity the government did boast about in 2013, never accomplished. Education, the laptops were never delivered. The health sector, infant survival in Kenya per 1,000 lives is lower when compared to that of other countries with similar public healthcare expenditure in the region. Is the country mismanaged?
Well, I wouldn't say, I don't want to get into whether the country is mismanaged, but I can tell you that corruption is killing this country.
Is the root cause of all the problems I mentioned?
I would say so. I would say so. And then I would go back again to why I'm telling you that Punguza Mzigo is very strong on promise, but very poor on delivery. Because then Punguza Mzigo says that we are going to help you deal with corruption by ensuring that within 30 days,
timeline,
Yes, timeline that will have dealt with all the corruption cases that go before court. Speaking as a lawyer who has practice, I can tell you for a fact that, you know, the kind of corruption, the mega corruption that we see in this country cannot be dealt with in 30 days and completed, you know, in 30 days, because then you have the prosecution presenting his case, then you have the defense, and you cannot also limit people that if they want to say somebody has 100, assuming that the prosecution has lined up 100 witnesses and the defense has lined up 100 witnesses, so will you time them and tell them each of the witnesses you speak for 1 minute? It is impractical. Each case will be unique on its own, and then the timeline will be dependent on, you know, the kind of nature of the case. But, and that's why I'm saying it is very good on the promise, but very weak on the delivery.
So was the government,
but the country, we must take very, very decisive action against corruption. And that is why, for me, there, you know, of late, I have seen certain action that might, you know, ignite a little hope. You know, cases of people being arrested, cases of being charged, people being charged, and even more recently, even the case of Kiambu governor, who was asked to step aside while the case is going on. The only thing I would urge is that where you have the governor stepping aside, that the cases, the courts need to expedite without telling them that they do 30 days, so that also the Kiambu people are not denied the right of the governor that they chose or that they elected.
Yes.
So that even if he's culpable, you know, he would be found guilty. But if he's not culpable, then he can continue with his work, because everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Yeah.
So has the government then, straight question, remedied the already ailing economy in the country? Because you look at inflation, there's no monetary discipline, the manufacturing sector is on the doldrums, there's capital flight from the market, and equally there are emerging forces in terms of the countries that are coming up to be the economic giants of the region. Yet this report from the World Bank comes. Then do you feel, as Member of Parliament, as the ODM party member, the member of the opposition, that the government has not done enough to fix the economy?
Well, what I can say is that I'm concerned, especially when I walk in the region and I see the countries that have always looked up to us. I can give you an example of Rwanda. I was in Rwanda recently. I've been to Ethiopia, I've been to Tanzania. And these are countries that have been looking up to Kenya. And now they are coming up, and they're coming out very strong, like Rwanda especially.
Yes.
It's coming up very strong, and if you are not very careful, they'll soon overtake us in the region. And therefore, for me, without saying whether the government has or has not done, I can tell you for a fact that the first year of this administration, nothing much happened.
Okay.
Within the second, now here where we are now, there have been attempts, and the attempts are targeting the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room in Kenya is corruption. And unless and until we deal with corruption, Kenya is endowed in terms of resources. There's no question about it. We've now gotten oil in Turkana. You know, we have, you know, our agricultural sector is good, despite, of course, the challenges of climate change. And we put in a lot of money into projects that should have actually, you know, spurred economic growth, like Galana Kulalu. But why do they fail? Because of corruption.
Yes.
And that is why I'm still back to the issue that until and unless we deal with corruption, then we are headed in the wrong direction. And that's why at least I have a glimmer of hope, because in the recent past, there have been, you know, activity, and I'm hoping it's not merely window dressing, and I'm hoping it's not merely, you know, politicking. I'm hoping it is actually clear, decisive action towards dealing decisively with corruption.
Okay, and merely not being cosmetic. Coming to you, Nafula Kisiangani. You look at the developments in the country, and an Oxfam report recently said that just more than 8,000 Kenyans own as much as the whole of the country. And that again speaks to a deep-rooted culture in this country. Honorable Millie mentioned corruption that has been self-investing itself ever since 1963. Do you see an able political leadership in the country that can dust itself from the current crisis, roll up the sleeve, and take on the bull by the horns?
Actually, that can only happen when I'll still emphasize, put my emphasis on taking back the power on the people, when we empower people to learn how to speak for themselves and about these systems. The high disparity between the rich and the poor happens also when there is a lot of ignorance from the people. There's been a lot of emphasis on development hardwares, whereby we invest in roads and everything. There's very little human development like happening in Kenya. Like when you look at the human development index, is still very low. And yes, we have a big problem when it comes like only few people own Kenya, and majority of Kenyans are actually suffering. We need to have we really need to fight corruption regarding that, because corruption has really attributed to that. And we also need to start focusing on the people, what we're educating them. I'm happy about the current changes on educational curriculum, because those are some of the contributing factors, because you'll find like most Kenyans, they have papers, they have everything, but they're still poor.
And jobless.
And jobless. It means there's something that it's very wrong in our system, because you cannot just go to school for 16 years. And then after that, and I can attribute that to the colonial systems. Most of the systems we acquired were colonial systems that were meant to restrict Kenyans and not to facilitate them. Yes, and that's why when some changes are made, like in education, I'm a bit hopeful that when it will be more skill-based, it will help to mitigate the gap between the rich and the poor. Fighting corruption alone is not enough when people cannot see the opportunities around them. Because Kenya is a very rich country, we have a lot, we are blessed, we have a good weather compared to other countries and everything, but unfortunately it's foreigners who are coming to see the opportunities.
All right.
The Kenyan youth and the Kenyan people are not seeing the opportunities in Kenya. So to mitigate that gap, we need to empower our people to start seeing these opportunities in Kenya, and we also need to fight corruption, like both human development, systemic changes, and also mindset change. Yes.
Okay.
But I think maybe just one other thing I would want to say that I differ with a little is the issue of blaming our colonial history. And the reason that I'm saying that is that if we have visionary leadership and we have leadership that is focused and determined, then you can change the course of a country. Look at Rwanda. I used to do work in Rwanda before I joined Parliament. I used to be a consultant for several organizations in Rwanda. And I used to go to Rwanda many, many times. And, you know, over 10 years later, when I went back to Rwanda and I've seen what has changed, it's amazing. It's amazing. I was just bowled over. And I can tell you that if Kenya, if the president decided to focus without feeling, you know, intimidated, without being held at ransom by people, then he can change the course of this country. And, you know, look at Rwanda. They did not blame their colonial history. When
neither just
the
Kagame, 1994 genocide.
Yes, he just decided they had the genocide. And he said, you know, it's our destiny is in our own hands. And they have changed the course of Rwanda. We need to think this way. And Kenya, again, talking about the human development, it is important, especially at the lower level. And I've seen that even the investment we have done in the past in education is dying. In the past, you'd go home and find, you know, in the rural, find a very old woman who is educated.
Yes.
And will speak all languages from English, Kiswahili, and French. But now you go and you find people who are young and have never gone to school. So we need to invest there. Yet on the other hand, the ones who are educated in Kenya, there is a flight.
From the
there's human capital flight from the country. And you find the people that are actually making the economies of other countries grow.
Are Kenyan.
Other Kenyans.
Yes, of course, just to mathematically back up your sentiments, 50,000 non-Somali Kenyans work in Somalia presently. And the report by the World Bank says, for instance, many countries such as Hungary and the Czech Republic and Bulgaria in Europe with similar levels of per student spending as Kenya have achieved higher completion rates in secondary schools compared to Kenya. And I quote, the report further notes, across country, a comparison between spending per secondary student in per capita GDP percentage terms and secondary completion rates shows that given that what Kenya spends, there's room to obtain higher outcomes in terms of the secondary school completion rates.
Yeah, but because we have entrenched corruption, you will go and find that now even when we've introduced the concept of capitation, I can assure you that there will be flies that we are counting in capitation. By the time the fly finishes school, even if you count them, which they will not turn to human beings. Why? Because we create what is not there. We create numbers and figures that are not there, so long as we are able to make money out of them. So yes, we are investing money, but we are not investing the money in humans. We are investing them in hardware, ghosts.
Okay,
not even hardware. I wish we'd even put it in hardware. They are ghosts. They are not people. They are phantoms.
Unseen.
They are phantom humans.
Okay, Nasrullah. Your sentiments coming, please. Express your sentiments. With regards to now coming to breaking down all the talking points that we have alongside Millie and you discussed, the sector by sector improvement that women have had presence ever since the gains that have been made in the country, and now where we are, we have the debate about the Punguza Mzigo, which again women have come out guns blazing, saying that this is going to be a pedal back in the gains made by women in the country. All that in summer, before I come to Honorable Millie on certain specific issue. Looking forward then, is the leeway lit, and perhaps is the scratched surface one that is smooth for you to roll on?
I can't say that it's smooth for me to roll on, but even by the fact that women are coming out to speak about their issue, that is a great encouragement, because that's what we are calling out. We just want women to start raising their voices and start noticing that there is a problem here, there is a problem here, so that they can start speaking about their issue. But all in all, I cannot say that we are where we were. There has been a lot of milestones that has been made with regards to gender. Personally, I like referring to the education gender gap, which has really been narrowed down. I remember there were days where by even going to school as a girl, it was a privilege. And our legislators really fought for, we've seen policies, we've seen even right now like projects that are bringing back the girls who are young mothers, continuing with their schools. There's a lot of progress. I think we should not give up, but we should continue like reaching out outside there, urging women to raise their voices, empowering them on some of these things, like on the Punguza Mzigo bill. You'll realize that previously, men were just reading for this and then telling women.
Okay.
My call is that so that women might start getting interested in political issues, because it affects their life. I always feel irritated when someone tells me, I hate politics. You hate politics, yet it dictates even how everything that you're buying. I want to encourage women who are watching this, start getting interested, like on matters BBI, Punguza Mzigo, and everything that affects you, because women are not just 50%. Actually, in Kenya, women are the majority. Okay, yes, more than 50%. We are not. Yes. We don't. In fact, we should be talking about women being 52% in parliament, not even the 2/3 gender rule. That is a very low threshold, because we are the majority. We need to be representation. Should be like if we are majority, we have to be the majority on the parliament. So women should raise their voices. They should seek to empower themselves and start talking about matters affecting them.
All right. Yes. I give the closing remarks to Millie Odhiambo.
Well, I would want to say that as women, we are not homogeneous, and we can create our own spaces, and so long as our voices are heard. So I want to encourage every woman everywhere that speak up and be heard, but be informed. Because I see a lot of people, because they just hear the word Punguza Mzigo, and you jump onto the bandwagon without understanding what it is. It could be a mzigo that has snakes inside to bite you.
Okay. All right, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, Member of Parliament, Suba North constituency, thank you for making time on the program. And Nafula Kisiangani, I do appreciate your time, woman commentator and analyst. It comes the hour, it comes the man. And tonight on the program came the ladies, and I thank them. And thank you to you too for your contributions on the program. We could not sample all your tweets at one point because in the best interest of time, my director is telling me, get out of the set. I'm doing so. Thank you, Elizabeth Kavata, for, of course, directing the show aptly. Our cameraman, thank you, gentlemen, and we'll see you next week for another show, another discussion, and probably other guests and other topics. We'll be seeing you then by the grace of God. From me and the team here in Lavington, our headquarters, good night.